right. It's Wednesday.
It
That
is
means
Wednesday.
We're here at Sustainable in the City. Hello, everybody.
Fantastic. Welcome. Welcome on this Wednesday that I just this morning told someone have a good weekend already. So, that's where my head's at.
Thanksgiving is next week. It's why I'm so glad you folks are joining us for a second week in a row. Next week is the holidays. And we're like, I bet the Wednesday before Thanksgiving, folks might not sit down for sustainable, or maybe they would. I don't know, but
more likely to. We'll do an extra one next week too. No, I'm just kidding. We're not doing an extra one next week. You convinced me.
But we're so glad to have you today for a second week in a row of Sustainable in the City. It does feel like it's almost the weekend. Like, when you get to those holidays, especially the holiday seasons, it's like you just keep thinking the weekend is the next day all the time.
Yeah. It's perpetually Friday, but just not as fun.
Exactly. But the holiday season is here, although it doesn't quite feel like it exactly.
We're about in the 70s today.
Yeah, it's weird.
It's a little warm. It's a little warm.
I'll take it.
Yeah, it's fine. Yeah, for a little bit.
So we are just letting you all folks get hopped into our into the webinar, into the Zoom room. Before we get started, as always, I'm Jenn Harrman. I am the Zero Waste Program Manager here at Metro Water Services with the Zero Waste team. And I'm here with my co-hostess, with the mostest, Christina Langone from Urban Green Lab. And today, just a quick heads up, we are going to be using the chat as always. So make sure you click on your little chat bubble so you can ask questions to our guest, special guest today, if you have questions about their presentation, or about their life, about anything that you all have for our guest today, Chris. So we'll be using the chat for that. Make sure you do mark it to everyone and not just hosts and panelists. That way everybody can see the questions that are going out and be part of that conversation as well, because you can share resources, share your thoughts, share your feelings, anything at all you want to share in the chat. We like to engage with you all there as well. So select to everyone. What else am I missing?
I don't think anything. Just sit back, relax. Let's learn, have fun. I want you all having fun.
All right. Okay, so we are a couple minutes in. We'll go ahead and I'm going to stop sharing this little screen here, and we're going to get everybody started on today's Sustainable in the City. So first off, again, welcome for those of you, if there's anybody that just jumped in, don't forget to use that chat feature to ask any of your questions to our panelists today. And I'm really super excited to have a representative from the new, few month old Nashville Department of Transportation. So as many of you may know, Public Works, whereas I used to be, split off, and all of us solid waste folks are over here at Metro Water Services, and Chris, our new panelist today, is over there at the National Department of Transportation. So today we are going to be talking all about Nashville's traffic calming program that has been going on for a few years, but has been recently revamped. So Chris is an engineer in training over at NDOT. He's actually super fresh and new to NDOT, comes to us from previous work in Texas. And so he is here though to talk all about the traffic calming program that he is helping Nashville with. And I am going to turn it over to him to share his screen, and we will jump in to learn everything about Nashville's traffic calming program.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jen. And let's see, let's make sure we tested this before, but I want to, can everyone see the PowerPoint?
You're good.
Awesome. Awesome. So as Jen said, my name is Chris Sandwith. I'm an engineer in training here at the Nashville Department of Transportation. I'm originally from Nashville, went to school in Texas and worked out there for a little bit. And now I'm back in Nashville and decided I wanted to come back and give back to the city that raised me. So I'm here with NDOT, and I handle the day-to-day operation of our traffic calming program here, and that's what I'm going to talk to you all about today. And so let's go ahead and get started. So to start off, might be asking, what is traffic calming? So traffic calming is any physical measure to reduce traffic speeds. So that can be anything from signage and pavement marking. So if there's a speed limit sign there with a radar sign below it showing your speed, that's traffic calming, and can also move to more physical and engineering modes, which you might have seen around town, like speed cushions or speed humps, or even the traffic circles in the middle of an intersection. So with traffic calming, we always say that there's 3 E's to traffic calming, but now we say there's 4 E's. Those E's are education, which by being here today and taking part in this webinar, you're educating yourself on traffic calming. There's enforcement, and that's along the lines of more on what Metro Police does, enforcing the rules of the road. And then there's engineering, which is what we do here at NDOT with traffic calming. And then the 4th E is evaluation. So we do our engineering, we design traffic calming for a road, and then we evaluate to make sure the things that we do on our roads actually help to calm traffic. So this is an example of a street. This isn't in Nashville. Couldn't find a good Google Earth view for this, but this is showing markings and chicanes, or the curve in the road. And so this is just an example of what is traffic calming. It's a way to try to change the view of the driver to, make it, you can see people walking. You're trying to get them to look around and see that they're driving through a neighborhood. Maybe they should be driving slower through it. Another example, like I talked about earlier, are these radar signs. They are helpful in, if you're not paying attention and not looking at the speed that you're driving, this shows you, and maybe you look at it and you realize you're driving over the speed limit and need to slow down. Another example, this is over in East Nashville, but it's another example of a chicane where it's a one-way chicane where you can only have one car go at one time. So so you need to stop or yield to the other car before you can go on, thus slowing you down. Another example, and this is a big one, a very popular one with a lot of the neighborhoods and streets that we meet with, but it's speed cushions and speed tables. So these are physical measures that we put in the street that a car has to slow down to comfortably go over. The one with the fire truck on it, that's a speed cushion, and those are very popular with emergency vehicles and emergency, like the fire department and EMTs, because they have gaps that are wide enough for the emergency vehicles to go without slowing down, but not too wide where even if you have a F250 or F350, you're still going to have to hit one of these speed cushions. And then another example is these traffic circles. These are similar to a roundabout, but with a traffic circle, we're not looking at acquiring any right of way. We're looking to fit it into a current intersection. So not having to expand out where the intersection itself or the pavement. So why do we need traffic calming? So Davidson County, it's 500 square miles thereabout, and a lot of our roads were built in a suburban style. They were built post-World War II and built for cars. And really in the last 5 to 10 years, Nashville's been moving more towards access to everyone on the street, not just cars, but pedestrians, bikes, trying to make the road for everybody. And as I'm sure we've seen in Nashville on our interstates and some of our arterial roads like Highway 100 and Harding Place, the traffic volume has increased so much in Nashville that now people are trying to find separate ways of getting to work or getting home after work, and some of those ways take them down local roads. And and also with the navigation technology out there, if there's a slowdown on the interstate, it might have you take a local neighborhood road that wasn't designed for this kind of traffic and wasn't built to handle the speeds like you would expect on an interstate. So brief history of the traffic calming in Nashville. Traffic calming really only came about in Nashville in 1999. That was when there was a $300,000 budget towards traffic calming. But unfortunately back then, there was not a good process in place. And there were some speed humps installed and some projects done that the community wasn't involved, and they were not very successful, and not a lot of the neighbors weren't happy with it. So that really kind of slowed down the traffic calming projects and program in Nashville at that point. However, in 2019, the whole process was revamped, and Nashville budgeted $1.5 million towards traffic calming. And when our program was revamped, we used different cities' programs to base ours off of. And in 2019, we looked at the Boston Slow Streets program and have based a lot of our projects and program off of that Boston Safe Streets or Slow Streets. And then just to show that the program is growing, in 2021, this year, we budgeted $4 million towards traffic calming. So that increased budget coincides with the number of applications that we've received in traffic calming, where in 2019, when we revamped the program, there were 54 total applications for streets and neighborhoods. And then in our most recent prioritization period, we have over 240 neighborhoods. So the program itself is growing. We see the need for traffic calming and the want for traffic calming. So we are working to increase the number of projects that we get done and can do, and to try to get to every street that has applied and wants traffic calming. So what can you do to help with traffic calming outside of the traffic calming program? Because that's obviously what we're here to talk about today, but there's stuff that you can do outside of the traffic calming program to help your streets out. So the first one is obviously to drive the speed limit or slower. So you want to be the pace car, so to say, in your neighborhood, where everyone, if you're driving the speed limit, then the people behind you will have to drive the speed limit. Another thing is street parking. A big part of traffic calming is narrowing the visual field of the drivers. So if we can narrow the visual field, that can lead to reduced speeds on the streets. Obviously, this isn't an option everywhere in Nashville. There's not street parking available everywhere, and with the hills and everything in Nashville, it can affect. If there's a drainage ditch, you don't want to park your car in a ditch. So, but if you do have the option of street parking, it's a good way to physically narrow the vision of drivers, and with a narrower visual field, drivers, studies show that drivers will slow down. Another thing is safety in numbers. It's, if your neighborhood is a big pedestrian area, get out, walk so that these cars can see that, it's a neighborhood, it's a residential neighborhood. Put it in the mind of the driver that they're driving through a neighborhood and that they want to follow the rules of the road and the speed limits that are set. Another great option is working with your Metro Nashville Police Department community coordinator. These are great people that every precinct has. They're super helpful with the police department, where if you have concerns about the speeds that people are driving on your roads, they can work on getting enforcement out there. And the more detail you can give them about times, the better, so that they can be out there to help your community. And then finally, you can apply to the Metro Nashville Traffic Calming Program, which is what I handle the day-to-day of. And it's a great program to do engineering and physical measures to help make the streets safer. So the Metro Neighborhood Traffic Calming Program, as I said, was revamped in 2019 and based largely on the Boston Slow Street program. We have twice yearly application periods. One is coming up in January, and then the next selection would be in July. We have them every January and July. We have a data-driven selection criteria. So we base our decisions off of data that we collect, which I'll go into more later. But the big thing with the traffic calming program is that we want neighborhood-led solutions. So a big thing that we talk to the neighbors and neighborhood about is that they're the ones that will be driving these streets every day. They're the ones that will have to deal with the physical measures if that's what we put in every day. I might rarely on occasion drive one of these streets, but we're happy to do whatever solution the neighborhood thinks would be best for them, whether that's speed radar signs, traffic circles, the speed cushions or speed tables. We have many options, and obviously we'll engineer and design them to make sure that they meet our engineering standards, but we want to make sure we're doing what the neighborhood believes would be most successful for the neighborhood. And then I just want to talk shortly about the 2020 and even 2021 challenges that we've had. So the current projects that we're dealing with were, the data was originally gathered for them in early, I guess, mid 2020, but due to COVID and the tornado that came through, there was a lot of freezing of budgets, and unless we had projects ongoing, we had to put them behind a little bit to make sure that we got through the COVID, the pandemic, and the tornado that came through around the same time. So we're just now getting back to these projects, and we're in the process of collecting data for the next selection in the coming weeks. But we had a time going through the tornado and COVID to make sure that we had the budget there to continue this program. So talking about the application, our next period opens in January, on January 3rd, and it'll be open the entire month of January. For other information for the application or any other the manual and the toolkit that we have for our traffic calming program. All of that can be found on our website, trafficcalming.nashville.gov. I also want to take a second to talk about Hub Nashville. It's a great resource that we have that if there's, something outside of traffic calming, if you have a request for street signs, or your street sign got knocked down, or you need the markings on the road redone because they're starting to wear out on a street, or even paving questions, Hub Nashville is the place to go. They'll get you everything that you need to and get it routed to the right person here in DOT, or in anyone in the Nashville government, to get it done and get it done as quickly as possible. So the breakdown of our application for the traffic calming program, there's 4 parts to it, and the first one is neighborhood support. So that involves either having 4 separate households sign on saying that they are wanting traffic calming in the neighborhood, or having a HOA or neighborhood group sign on saying that they want support. That's just to show that it's big want throughout the entire neighborhood. It's not just 1 or 2 people wanting it. So along with that, there is a petition process once a program is selected, but this is just to show that there's support throughout the neighborhood. The next part of our application is the priority streets. So that's where 1 to 4 streets, you can even list more, that's just what we have on the application. But you list the streets that you feel like the biggest issues are happening on. Along with that, we only have so much resource for collecting our speed studies for these streets. So we want to make sure that we're collecting our speed data on the streets that you feel have the largest issues. The third part is traffic issues. So this is, there's 5 or 6 different options listed of what you feel are the issues on the streets that you've listed and in your neighborhood. And you rank them on a 1 to 5 scale on what is the most important, what is the least important. That's really helpful with us in the traffic calming program to figure out, if you feel that pedestrian safety is the biggest issue, then we want to make sure that we focus our designs on the pedestrian safety, as well as we can take the issues that you feel are the biggest on your street, and if it's not something that we can cover in traffic calming, then we can get it over to the right people to have them take a look at it. And then finally, the last part of our application is program agreement, and that's just saying that you agreed that to have meetings and to civilly have these meetings to discuss the issues with the streets in the neighborhood, and go through and work with us to make sure that we can get it done in a timely manner, and get our meetings and designs looked at. So once the application's in, we have a data collection process. So the data collection and prioritization is really based off of 4 different parts. So there's crash history, neighborhood destinations, and active transportation. And these are built off of the GIS model. It's based off data that is open data found on Nashville's website. Based off of those 3 things, we kind of have an initial prioritization, and we take the a top portion of based off of these 3 and study the speeds on each of these streets. So this is a picture of our speed study apparatus. It's really just two pneumatic tubes that go across the street that they are able to see how many cars are driving down the street as well as the speed that they're traveling. If a neighborhood is selected or not, we give the speed data to each of the streets after we've collected it to let them know, what the speeds are, what time of day the where speeding is happening, if there is speeding happening. We also use it with the Metro Police Department to give them an idea of, hey, it's between the hours of 2 and 3 that the most speeding happens. So that'd be a good time for enforcement in that area. So once we have all of this data, we put it into our prioritization model. So our prioritization model has a 100-point scale, and it's weighted based off the crash history, the measured speeds, the active transportation, and the neighborhood destinations. So crash history, that is the number of crashes that have happened on that stretch of road over the past 5 years, divided by the mileage of the road. So we get an idea of the crashes per mile of the street. Along with that, we have the measured speed, which is 30 points. And that's based off those speed studies. And we base it off of the 85th percentile speed. So that means, if you have 100 people driving down the road, this is what the 85th person would be driving on that road. As for the active transportation, that's 15 points of it, but that is if a road has sidewalks, if there's bus stops, if there's reasons that people would be getting off on that road and walking to a house or walking to another destination. Speaking of which, the neighborhood destination is the last part of our prioritization model. It's also 15 points, and it is based off of the schools that are in the area, community centers, things of that nature that someone in the neighborhood would, if they could, they would want to walk to. So this is the way our prioritization model is at the current moment. We do have, with the planning department, they are planning on coming out with a Vision Zero plan, action plan that will, that I'm hoping will change the way that we prioritize the neighborhoods that we choose. It's something that the planning department is working on, and we would change our prioritization based off of the Vision Zero plan. So just to give an idea, this is our last prioritization period, which was in March of 2020, and that we are actively doing the projects right now. As you can see, there isn't a large difference at the cutoff. Between Castlegate and North Creve Hall and Kemper Heights and Belmead Highlands, there's not a big difference in the scoring. So what this shows is that, we understand that there's issues on all streets throughout neighborhood or throughout Nashville. And it's something that, as we increase the projects and increase the budget for traffic calming, we hope to be able to get to every application. And the other thing I want to talk about with this as well is, even though Kemper Heights and Belmead Highlands weren't selected in this period of the prioritization, there is nothing that they have to do to be added again to our prioritization period. The applications are held on to, and there's no need to reapply. We just put them back in the prioritization, and that's with every neighborhood. So we keep them in there, and we'll get to them as we move down our prioritization. So once a neighborhood is selected, we have an initial kickoff meeting with the neighborhood where we bring a large map of the streets affected, and really work with the neighborhood to get an idea of what they feel like would work best in their neighborhood, and just get to know the neighbors and know the neighborhood. Once we have that initial meeting, we at NDOT go back and start working on an initial design to show the neighborhood. And we have 3 to 4, up to 3 to 4 meetings with these neighborhoods that we go back and forth, and we make sure that we're designing it the way that the neighborhood would like. So if that means that, we put a speed cushion in one area that the neighborhood would rather have it 5 feet further down the road, we work with them to make sure that our design is what's best for the neighborhood and what they would like best. So with that, it's an iterative process. We're constantly working and fine-tuning this design to give the neighbors what they would most enjoy in their neighborhood. As I said, once we finalize the design and have a final meeting with the neighborhood, that's where we have a neighborhood petition. So currently with that petition, we're looking for 70% of the homeowners on the affected street to sign off saying that they're happy with the design and that they would like it installed in their neighborhood. And then once we have that petition filled out with 70%, that's when we would start our install and construction of the traffic calming measures. So, with this process of going through the neighborhood meetings and design, we've seen it take as short as 4 months from selection to construction, but it's neighborhood led. So, we want to make sure that we're doing that it's wanted by a majority of the neighborhood, so we don't have any issues like with previous versions of the traffic calming program where it was just a few neighbors that were most wanting the project. So with that, here's my email. If you have any further questions or something that I didn't cover, or any needs or wants with the traffic calming program, feel free to reach out to me. Also, I've given you the website. It's trafficcalming.nashville.gov. There's also a list on that website that shows previous applications that have been filled out for all neighborhoods, and it's broken down by council district. So if you're unsure if your neighborhood's applied previously, or just want to check to make sure that it's there, that's on our website as well, showing all the applications that we currently have on file. So on that note, I'll open up to any questions that we have.
Great. And Jen, I know you had some questions. We had lots of questions from our audience. I just wanted to make sure, was there anything that you wanted to, Jen is frozen. Okay, my view is not seeing her. All right. So Chris, why don't you can stop sharing your screen, okay, and we will jump right on into some questions. And if Jen has some extra questions she wants to throw in, she can do that when Jen freezes. So here we go. We had lots of good questions in the chat. So we have one from Hans Willie, who says, what about traffic calming at the split between Highway 70 and 100 in Belmead? I think this might have been a question at the very beginning when you were saying that you didn't have that many maybe good examples of it for Nashville, but the question was if you have any info on that split between Highway 70 and 100 in Belmead.
So I know exactly the intersection he's talking about. So that is actually TDOT controlled. So any state routes throughout Nashville, like Highway 70, Highway 100, Harding Place, those are actually TDOT controlled. And with that as well, traffic calming is really good, especially vertical measures for local roads like residential streets throughout Nashville. With Highway 70 and Highway 100, those are, not sure if they're considered arterials or major collectors, but they're streets that are designed to carry large volume of vehicles. So vertical measures is not the answer there, but also I know that TDOT has been working with NDOT as well to come up with some ideas at that intersection, because there's, I think it's an intersection of 3 or 4 different streets, as well as the split of Highway 70 and Highway 100. So it's there's a lot going on there, and so it's something outside of traffic calming that is definitely being looked at.
Great, wonderful. And we have a friend from TDOT actually in the chat who said that TDOT is studying this right now, and it was addressed with council members and the public back in early October, not looking at calming measures per se, more likely road enhancements. I asked him to send some resources if he has anything, nothing public right now. So
Okay.
Great question. Just not exactly up our alley for this particular conversation. So that goes as well with Karen, I believe, asked a question of how to deal with roads that are state highways. So we'll kind of just lump that in as the same thing. So
Perfect.
Great. So another question that we have from Karen, she said, just wanted to make sure this happened. The standard speed limit, if not marked, is now 25 miles per hour. Is that correct? Do you know that answer?
I can get that answer. I know in, Nashville split up between the urban service district and the general service district. I know recently, I think a little bit before I started with NDOT, a majority of local streets in Nashville had their speed limits all lowered to, well, not all, a majority of them had them lowered to 25 miles per hour. I'm not sure in regards to unmarked streets. I can definitely look into that, but that's where we're at right now with the urban service district. They started off lowering it to 25 on a large number of the local streets in that area.
Great. And is for Gallatin and Main Street in East Nashville, we have a question. Is that TDOT or would that be Metro?
I would have to look at a map, but I will say one of the engineers I work with here at NDOT, who's no longer at NDOT, but one of the ways he kind of explained it to me is if you go on Google Maps and you see that a road, I think, is yellow or orange, that is a state route that is controlled by TDOT. If it's not the yellow or orange on Google Maps, whatever map service you use, it's a Metro controlled road. Along those lines, it's intersections of Metro controlled and TDOT. There's a lot of questions on pavement markings or signals, who controls that. It is kind of a intersection by intersection basis, but the NDOT controls a lot of the signals, and the pavement markings themselves are kind of shared between TDOT and NDOT.
Nice straight line of logic with bureaucracy as always.
Yes, for sure.
Great, wonderful. I appreciate you giving those questions a go. I know they were a little bit specific. So
Right.
thinking about, you were talking about that 4 million in 2021. Ed has a question of whether or not, is that an amount for that year specifically, or was it 2 million that was not distributed due to COVID in 2021, and then another 2 million for 2021? So basically, our annual budgets envisioned to be 2 million or 4 million per year.
That is a great question. We base it off of a number of neighborhoods. So we wanted to get 50 neighborhoods done in the 2021 fiscal year, 25 here in the fall and another 25 in the spring. So that number is based off of the number of neighborhoods that we're wanting to get to, along with consultant costs and everything that goes, installation costs, everything that goes into the traffic calming program and projects that we do.
Okay. So it's more based on need instead of something that you're kind of forecasting out year after year.
Right. It's based off, number of projects. And as we increase the number of projects, we would obviously hope that that number would increase, but yeah.
Okay, perfect. And Ed had another question. I'm not sure if this would be you or if we went over this, so I apologize. Who is the contact at planning to get and keep up to date on Vision Zero? Or just where would you point folks if they're really interested in staying up to date on Vision Zero? Would it be on Hub Nashville, or where would you point them to?
I would start with Hub Nashville and start with the planning website. I'm not sure who the contact is on nashville.gov for the planning, but I do know that that's something that they've been working on this year and are hoping to have done in the near future. That action plan. So.
Great, perfect. And who knows, maybe it'll be a future SITC episode. Stay tuned. So this one is, I'm going to kind of combine two questions from Lisa and Kelly here because they kind of go together in my mind. So this one's a little bit long, so let me see if I can shorten it a little bit. So Lisa is curious if Nashville, kind of Davidson County area, will be allocating funds towards sidewalks particularly. So do you work with the construction companies downtown and the hotel construction shutting down some of the sidewalks that already exist? And are there discussions to the lack of sidewalks on Woodmont Boulevard? It's super busy, and now that you're describing with traffic, et cetera, there aren't any sidewalks currently. Will there ever be funds allocated to this, or is it up to the individual homeowner? So I'm going to kind of ask that in two different ways. One, are you working with places like where Kelly is asking about more retail and tourist locations, thinking about like 12 South. I can think of a particular place right now in 12 South where you have to cross the street because there's no sidewalk because of construction. So is there anything on that work for sidewalks and construction? And then just generally, is there any funds allocated or work being done for implementing sidewalks that are not currently there? Two different questions.
Right. Yeah. And those are both great questions. With traffic calming itself, sidewalks are kind of their own thing, but we do, and I would say almost every neighborhood that we have traffic calming meetings in, one of their top requests is sidewalks. And it's a big thing with how the roads were designed, that Nashville is very suburban designed and very car focused. It's something that, our sidewalks, they're pretty large capital projects that have to be undertaken because there's acquisition of right of way. If we're installing it, basically getting the little curb of or the little bit of land at the front to install a sidewalk. It's something that through traffic calming, we don't have the budget for. We are looking to install vertical measures or the speed radar signs to try to calm the traffic that is coming through there. I will say with these neighborhoods that we do meet with, when sidewalks are brought up, I make sure to talk with our sidewalk people here to see if there are projects upcoming in that area. But the majority of our sidewalk plans are, they're capital projects that are not in the scope of the traffic calming program.
Okay.
So.
Okay. So it's a little bit outside, again, kind of like these very strict measures that you're working on. So Donald actually just put something in there, and I want to make sure that this is accurate. It says vertical measures equals bollards and anything that comes out of the road surface, ?
Sorry. Yeah. So sorry, I did engineering speak, my bad. But vertical measures, I'm talking more of the speed cushions and speed tables, the things that are in the right of way that you have to go over to go through the road. So bollards technically are, but that's more of a narrowing technique, something to narrow the driver's vision.
And thank you for that, because that just went right into the next question that we have. So you talked about, when you were talking about narrowing the driver's vision, you kind of put a little bit of that onus on folks for street parking. And there was a concern from Nancy, and I just wanted you to have a chance to kind of talk to that concern. Right. So one, she's saying we take on risk for our car getting hit by another car that is speeding or driving recklessly, and that the driving space would be too narrow for emergency vehicles. Right.
And that's kind of why I put the statement of, if there's room for street parking. It's something that every street in Nashville, it's not going to be viable. An example that comes to my mind is Kenner Avenue over kind of off West End in West Nashville. But I think previously, way in the past, they had people parking on both sides, and it kind of became a one-way chicane in a way, because the road was so narrow that now, last I saw, I don't know if something else has changed with it, but they have made it a two-way chicane, having cars parking on either side. So, like basically alternating which side that they're street parking on. So it's, yes, there is a risk to parking in the street. That's, in a perfect world, everyone would slow down, and all we would need is radar signs to slow down drivers. But if someone's going to speed, and they have, in all intents and purposes, wanting to speed, then there's some measures that can just be ignored. Unlike unlike the speed cushions and speed tables, where we design it to have them go over the street or go over the bumps.
Right, definitely. Yeah, it's kind of like all hands on deck, and we don't want to be advocating for anything where you feel like your car is not going to be in a safe position. But if you have the choice and it looks like you'll be fine on that street, let's narrow that field of vision, I think is kind of what we're doing. Awesome. So our friend Ed here has sent in another question about street trees. So apparently they are a proven way to reduce speeds. I think street trees are proven to reduce so many things. Are they part of your toolbox, or like sidewalks, does someone else have to do that? And is there any way to work with, he's saying, like Route Nashville?
Right, that's a great question. It's not something that we necessarily have in our toolbox, just because we are looking very street related, and putting markings in, or putting in something narrow vision, or something to slow down drivers. So it's not something we've looked at. I know it's something that we do have a member here at NDOT that looks at street trees and the addition of street trees. But it would be something more along the lines of adding a median in with a sidewalk, or adding in a little green space before it to to put in trees or something like that. So.
Okay, great. This one I missed actually from Valencia, so I apologize. I'm going back up. I'm not sure if this is a little too specific for you, but what criteria is needed for a neighborhood to qualify for streetlights? Is that part of what you all do, or is that kind of another?
That would be outside, and that's a great question for Hub Nashville.
Hub Nashville.
Yeah, if you put a request in, something along those lines, it'll get to the right group here at NDOT or Public Works, or what was previously Public Works, and it would they would be able to give you a better idea for streetlights.
Great. And so I think I'm going to do one more call for questions here, folks. Our darling Jenn is having problems connecting back onto the Zoom. She got out of here. She didn't want to be here anymore. And so we are going to wrap it up once we finish up these questions in the chat. I believe I got to everything. If there is anything that you asked that did not get answered, shoot it in the chat again, and I will make sure to ask that. And if you have anything that is lingering, shoot them on over. And I have one other question that I would love to know, and you did talk about it a little bit. If there's anything in other cities, I know you mentioned Boston, which is actually where I am originally from. If there's anything like specific that you find kind of interesting, any projects, even if we maybe can't do them in Nashville, or if you can explain why we can't do them in Nashville, anything that gets you excited as a traffic calming aficionado.
Yeah, a lot of, like I said, our revamped traffic calming program is based off of the Boston Safe Streets. They do a lot more pavement marking and putting up bollards or vertical delineators to try to make their turns more right angles, not have as much of an angle to slide into traffic. And that's something that I think in Nashville, it could work. We don't do it a lot through our traffic calming, just because a lot of times the request for speed humps and speed tables and stuff along those lines is in more demand. But that's, a very easy way to slow down and help with curves, especially if pedestrians are waiting to cross. And, with a lot of our streets, there aren't sidewalks. And, if you're waiting at a corner and a car, quickly makes a turn in, it can be very dangerous. So that's something that I really don't see a lot in Nashville, but it's something that I think could help a lot with our streets and with pedestrians in the streets.
And the more folks are walking too, I mean, that'll also, it can be hard to look out for what's not usually there. And so I think going back to, we talked to Walk Bike Nashville a little while ago, and they talked about kind of, normalizing the actual walking and biking, and kind of, they go hand in hand, this traffic calming and also trying to get folks out there in a safe way. So if anybody's interested in that, go on back. We'll send out our the UGL YouTube, and you can kind of watch these in tandem, because they really do complement each other very well.
And that's a big thing with traffic calming is, we want to work with our sidewalk team and our bikeways team and our planning team even, to make sure that what we're doing in traffic calming is looking towards the future of Nashville, not just what's happening now or what's happened in the past. But I'm sure you see it all over Nashville, but there's construction everywhere. And so, and one house is becoming 2 to 4 houses. So, that means more cars out there potentially. And, we want to make sure that what we're doing is taking all of that into account.
Yeah, yeah. Get ahead of, although it's already started, but get ahead of the problem.
Right.
For
Right.
sure, for sure. I love it. Wonderful. Well, there was one other question that I realized that I didn't say because I think you kind of mentioned it. Someone was asking about, they had put it in for a specific uh, street intersection, and they were saying, let me just get the actual question instead of trying to paraphrase it like a creep. Our neighborhood, Banbury Crossing subdivision at Edmondson Pike, was supposed to get a traffic circle in 2019. Is it definitely on the list for fiscal year 2022? I know that's pretty specific. I saw it actually on that list that you were referencing of all the open applications. But do you have any idea of when those ones that were postponed from 2019 would start up again?
I don't have that necessarily. Not sure if I've seen that previously with the traffic calming, but it's something we can look into. It might be, I think Edmondson is, you said Edmondson and Banbury, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think Edmondson's a T-Dot controlled street, so it might be the sort of thing that we're working together with T-Dot to figure out how we're putting it in and everything along those lines. It's something that I don't personally have the information on, but if it's been talked about previously, it's there's probably something out there with NDOT and TDOT, and they're just working through the specifics on it.
Okay. Okay. So that one was kind of like a unique situation. Perfect. Well, I think we have potentially have Jenn back. I don't know if Jenn wants to say anything.
I'm back.
There you are. Hello.
So sorry. My Zoom crashed and it's like the fourth time today, but so it goes, right? You probably have covered everything. It sounds like you've been talking about TDOT. So the only question I was going to ask, I'm going to assume has been covered. Just any kind of, let me find what it was. Everything also closed. So let's see here. I can pull it up really quick. Oh, the only other question that I had that you may or may not have discussed was what kind of coordination and collaboration is there between like the Metro Nashville Police Department, TDOT, or any other agencies or nonprofits such as like Walk Bike that go on with any of these kind of traffic calming projects. But you may have already touched on this already.
We've touched on a little bit, but I'll make sure we answer it fully. But with TDOT, a lot of our interaction with them is more in the sense if there's an intersection between a TDOT controlled road and a Nashville Department of Transportation controlled road. So with the traffic calming specifically, we're focused more on the local roads of Nashville that are metro controlled and don't have too much crossover with TDOT. We did have something recently where we got our contractor to paint a crossing across, I think it was at the intersection of Hart and Dickerson, where we worked with TDOT, and there was a kind of an urban tactical, I'm stuttering on words, but they went out there and kind of painted the curb of the street and had the local students paint and put some designs on the sidewalk and the curb there. So that was one where it was kind of outside the scope of traffic calming, but we did interact with TDOT. With the police department, they have at each precinct, they have a community liaison who they are great people to work with. If we have any sort of, when we get our speed data back and see the hours that have highest speeding or things along those lines, we share that with police if someone puts in a request for enforcement that they know the hours that are most likely to need the enforcement. And then with nonprofits, we have done some work with the Civic Design Center, and I think the previous day-to-day operations leader of the traffic calming did a presentation in early 2020 or early 2021 with Walk Bike Nashville. So, you know, as we grow the traffic calming, it would be great to work with these nonprofits and, you know, not just have it be NDOT, but have it be with how community-led the traffic calming program is. We want to make sure we include as much of the community as we can.
I just love that the data is being shared with those entities that really can use it and take it and do something good for the community with it, because it's such good and interesting data to collect too. And one little question that I personally had, so those speed collection data, the little 2 strips that are on the street, do you all see, and because every time I see that, I'm like, I'm going to get a ticket. And so I slowed down, you know, I mean, I'm just, it kind of puts me on edge and makes me nervous. So do you see that could cause potential impacts to the data that's being collected if people are seeing it in of itself as a kind of traffic calming system in a way?
Previously, or with the data we've collected, we haven't noticed but we would have a very difficult time, you know, testing that theory of if it, because how do we measure it without measuring the way that we, so it's not something that, I think as someone just said, the tubes across the street are traffic calming themselves. So, you know, the hope is that it won't affect the data, but in reality, there's a chance that it might. But, you know, the other issue we run into with those tubes is that measuring our speed data is that's weather dependent. So if it's rainy out, people are going to drive slower. So then, you know, it's not a good data set. And then we've actually recently with our speed data collection, we were measuring on some streets where there was street parking and people parked on the tubes themselves. And so we had to recollect the speed data on those streets to ensure that we had everything right, because it's all pneumatic. So if you're parked on it, you're basically nulling out the data. So but I hope that we can find some way in the future to have speed data without having to put those tubes, because like you said, it could be something that's really affecting the speeds people are driving.
Yeah, but still really good. You know, any data that we can collect on it is just super good to have, and super good to be able to use that in so many different ways. I love that piece of this. Well, those are my only questions. I do apologize again for disappearing. I'm gonna have to go back and rewatch so I can catch all of the chat. But I will pull up our next episode here really quick. So we double dipped this month 2 weeks in a row. So that means that we are kind of on hiatus then until after all the holidays and we get into December. So our next episode is actually not going to be until December 8th. But December, we've got some really fun episodes coming up for you. We've got Sustainable Land Management with the Nashville Chew Crew. So they are the sheep that mow lawns, if you will, to manage land sustainably. They do some work for Metro Water Services on the levee. But so we're going to see some super cute, hopefully, pictures and videos of sheep. So don't miss it. And Dougie, they have a, oh shoot, I can't remember the name of the dog, but, or the type of dog. Anyway, the herding dog. Anyway, a lot of really fun and interesting stuff. So that'll be interesting to learn about in our next episode, December 8th. And then after that, you're going to see from Christina and myself, we're going to bring you a holiday spectacular about all the different ways that you can minimize your waste and be more sustainable throughout the whole holiday season, from meals to wrapping paper and all of that stuff. So definitely don't miss that episode as well. But we'll see you all in December. And I just want to say thank you so much, Chris, for being here, sharing about this program, especially being so brand new to NDOT and jumping into this program as an expert on traffic calming, really, border collie. Thank you, Ed. Oh my gosh. Ugh. But really appreciate you being here. This is great information, and I hope folks that haven't applied yet will apply at the very minimum to get that data collected and start making a difference with reducing speeds and making our neighborhoods more safe. So thank you so much for being here, and we will see everybody December 8th. Yes.
Thank y'all.
All right. Thanks, everyone.
Everyone.
Bye.